Maybe you don't know.
This time, this time, this time, this time, this time to build, 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 this time power, this time to build power, this time to build power, this time to build power.
What's up, everybody? I'm your host, Chris Hampton. Welcome to episode 119 of the Power Company Podcast, brought to you by PowerCompanyClimbing.com. I am sitting here in Waco Tanks right now in a windstorm, small windstorm, mind you. There have been a couple that were much more ferocious in our time here. Things are really starting to click for me down here. I've spent more time, honestly, I think, on double-digit boulders in the last 3 weeks than I have in my previous 20-some years of climbing combined, and that's starting to show, getting a little more comfortable there. I'm just determined not to fall into that same pattern as most mid-40 and beyond climbers, the endurance rut. That's what I'm calling it now. Instead, I'm going to boulder harder as I get older, and I'm documenting that, albeit slowly and sporadically, on the We Scream Like Eagles podcast that the patrons get. You can check that out at patreon.com/powercompanypodcast or at the link in your show notes right there in your pocket supercomputers. I appreciate all the help we get from patrons. Frankly, they just make this thing possible. Another quick bit of news before we get going here. Nate and I will be coaching a workshop for coaches at the CWA Summit in May in Loveland, Colorado, and I'll be speaking at the summit as well, as if you don't hear enough of me already. Early bird registration for the summit lasts until January 31st, so get on it. Link is in the show notes. You can also find it at climbingwallsummit.org. That's pretty simple. Most of you are smart. You can get that on your own. Okay, this episode is something of a bonus. It wasn't in the plan for the month, and I use the word plan very lightly here. But it turned out to be such a fucking fantastic conversation that I just can't sit on it. Our guest, Brian Antheunisse, is a 27-year-old climber from Texas who's been crushing for a long, long time. I actually assumed he was quite a bit older because I've been aware of him for quite some time. I'd call Brian a climber's climber, I guess. He's very concerned about improvement and progression and loves climbing, just the whole thing of it, but doesn't really much care if anyone knows about what he's doing. So if you don't know the name, you're not alone. Brian and I sat down here in Waco Tanks inside Starcraft, the Power Company spaceship, to discuss his epic battle with the legendary Fred Nicole testpiece, Esperanze, V14. And this interview starts off with a bit of a bombshell for someone who's been working on something for 9 years on and off. Let's get into it.
Maybe you don't know.
You definitely have to be smart with how you apply your effort, but I would say 95% of people, 99% of people that I see, effort is where they're falling short.
Power. This time to build power. This time to build power. This time to build power.
Yeah, no, I had a really good last session on it, and gave it pretty much everything I had, and had my one last go that I grabbed the start holds, and I was like, okay, this is it. This is the last go I got, and everything went right. Got to the end and just didn't have anything left.
Yeah.
So
That was today.
that was today.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And it's kind of funny. I actually just was piddling around warming up at the end, and I was just trying to think about if there was any way to go to the Waco different, just in case.
Yeah.
Because the heel hook beta is like, I'm not quite tall
Super
enough.
stretchy.
Yeah. But it turns out that that's actually just something that I've been telling myself for the past 9 years.
Oh, really?
And I tried the heel hook way, and magically it worked.
Oh, fuck.
And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Are you serious? So then I got really excited. I was like, oh my God, all I got to do is get to the end one more time.
Yeah. Get the heel in.
And had a couple of goes where I had like foot pops that derailed them, which is pretty common. And then got one good last go, got to the end, got the heel hook in, and gave it everything I had. But I had nothing left. I was completely depleted.
Yeah. Yeah,
So.
I'm sure. Emotionally, physically,
Yeah.
all of it.
Yeah, man, it's been a really intense, like past 3 months and past 2 weeks.
Can we go back like to beginning of this thing?
Yeah, sure.
I don't know the whole history of it, and I'm curious to. Partly because we all get stuck into that, like, banging our head against the wall, long-term project. And, you know, I talked to John Cardwell about biography early on in the podcast days. You know, he was one of my first episodes.
Cool.
But I've never talked to anyone about a really long-term boulder project. And I've never really had a long-term boulder project. And now I'm just going down that path myself.
Cool.
Like, I'm feeling like I want to boulder hard. I don't want to go the path of all the other like 45-year-old dudes who are deciding Maple Canyon and the Red are the only places I can climb. And I want to try to boulder hard. And so I've set this big like goal of V12 someday. And I know it's going to take a lot of fucking work and a lot of time. And there's going to be one boulder I get stuck into that's going to take me a long time, I have a feeling. So
Okay.
I would just love to know more about both the process of deciding on it, training for it, and the fucking emotional roller coaster that you're going through then and now.
Yeah, sure.
Because you've been working on this one a while, right?
It's been 9 years. So 1/3 of my lifetime, this has been my project.
That's a crazy way to look at it.
Yeah. But it wasn't, it's not like I've been working it. I haven't put like 500 goes into it or anything like that. I mean, I don't get a lot of time off, so I'm not like out here for like an entire season trying it over and over again.
Yeah.
But yeah, the first time that I really started trying it for real was about 9 years ago. So
you were like 18-ish.
19, yeah.
19.
Yeah, I'm 27 now. And I had just turned 19. So I guess it was that season. I had spent 2 months out here. So I was just starting college, and I took one semester off just to climb, and I had gone to Spain, and then I spent 2 months here, and I became a guide and all that. And that's the season that I kept looking back at for the past 9 years and saying like, that was the pinnacle.
Right.
When I was 19 and I spent 2 months in Waco,
that was my best year.
That was the strongest I ever was.
Mm-hmm.
And during that season is when I started trying Esperanze. That was back. You can find videos of Jimmy doing it, Jimmy Webb, and I was there when he was trying it, and I kind of started trying it with him because I had done several V13s prior to that. And that climb had always been sort of like completely. I didn't even aspire to be that strong. Like,
it's
that
kind of a
even...
legendary climb.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I mean in the guidebook it says like probably the hardest rock climb in Waco Tanks, which obviously isn't true anymore, but
right.
That's kind of like the way it always was in my head.
Right. So you had built this mythology up around this boulder.
Yeah.
It kind of everybody had. I mean, it's
right.
a Fred boulder, right?
Yep.
And it's, Fred's a myth himself, so.
Yeah, exactly. And that was the hardest thing that he had put up in the place that he was sort of the grandfather of the double-digit boulders of. And
right.
So I tried it that season and surprised myself by putting together like pretty good links. I wasn't really that close to doing it back then, but it was sort of like the very end of my season out there. But I had done just good enough on it to believe.
Yep.
Like, one day I can actually do this. And that kind of became like my obsession. My, well, I don't know if I would call it obsession in the beginning, but it was sort of like the pinnacle of what I saw of in terms of potential in myself. Like that, maybe that could be possible, and that would be my ultimate best thing I would ever do.
Yep.
But after that, I went back to school. That was taxing. I got a degree in electrical engineering, so you can imagine I didn't have like all the time in the world to climb.
Right.
Around that same time, I met my now wife out here, actually, in El Paso at a Starbucks, believe it or not.
Nice.
So I started dating her, and we've been together ever since. We've been married now about a little over 5 years. I went to school, and then I started a job after school, and that has been even more intense than school was. So pretty much for the past 9 years, I've had pretty serious adulting going on.
Right.
And never really like devoted myself to climbing. I always maintained a pretty solid floor that I relied on, and I could always climb well enough to be like proud of myself, but I was never as strong as I was that one season. But in my head, I thought, maybe I can do it. Yeah. So I would come back every year, every winter, for maybe it was 5 days, maybe it was a week, maybe it was less even. But I would always come back. I would always drag my poor friends into the Martini Cave. Can't believe they're still my friends. And I would try it, and I would never really get that close. I would kid myself into thinking that it could be any go or anything, but I was really pretty far away.
Which is sort of an important part of the process. Like, yeah. Sort of tricking yourself into, oh, I'm really close. This could happen. It's worth coming back to again.
Yeah, exactly. You know? So throughout all those sessions of really not being strong enough, I scrutinized every tiny thing. I dialed in my beta. The muscle memory is very ingrained at this point.
Yeah.
And I always kept coming back. I would kind of trick myself into, I don't know, feeling like really strong in the gym, like a few weeks before it was time to come. So I would think like, oh, maybe this could be the year.
Yep. So in those years, was there like training lead up, or just this, I'm adulting hardcore, it's almost time to go to Waco, let me get in the gym a little bit?
Yeah, it was mostly me trying to squeeze something in at the last minute, and I would feel like some sort of progress.
Yep.
It was never even remotely close to enough progress, but it was like a little bit of progress, so I would trick myself into thinking that I'm strong right now. But it was really, cramming it in at the end, because I was never long-term focused on it enough back then with all that going on.
Yep.
And then last year, actually, I felt stronger than I had been in a really long time. There was a new gym that opened up in Austin. I live in Austin now. I moved there about 3 years ago.
Where were you before?
Dallas. I grew up in Dallas.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was a Team Texas kid. I did the whole, youth climbing competition thing. I did that my whole career, basically. So that was always kind of my focus. But I liked climbing outdoors because I was a little bit better at it than the comps.
Mm-hmm.
But last year, after they opened up a new gym in Austin, I was feeling pretty strong, like stronger than I had been in a long time. So I thought, okay, well, maybe this could be the year. Kind of the same pattern. And I came out here, and I got shut down worse than I ever had prior years when I hadn't even really done much.
Yep.
And that's when I realized, oh my God, all I've been doing is like volume wrestling and jumping between blobs, and like I don't have any finger strength.
Right.
I was really strong on like the dumb problems they were setting in the gym, but it was not the right kind of strength.
Right. Totally.
So that is the moment that I knew, okay, that was a wake up call. If I'm going to do this thing, I have to train for it specifically. And And there's plenty of things coming up in my life. I think I'm not far away from getting a pretty big increase in responsibility for my job. Some family stuff could be happening in the future. So I'm sort of like feeling like, man, I've been just dawdling, doing nothing for so long. Like I got to take this seriously or I got to give up on it.
Yeah.
So I
Clock
decided,
feels like it's ticking harder and harder.
Yep. So I decided to take it serious, about 3 months ago. And it's kind of funny because it really wasn't that, I didn't put that much thought. There wasn't a lot of like really complicated stuff I was doing to train.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I really only did like 4 things.
Did you stay at the same gym?
I kind of bounced back and forth between 2 gyms because one gym I think has better training in Austin and the other gym opens at 6 a.m. so I can go before work.
Gotcha.
So I would kind of bounce back and forth. But really all I need is a hangboard or like a campus rung or like a crimp or something and a bar. And that's like pretty much all I used.
Mm-hmm.
Plus I did a lot of climbing on the moon board.
Yep. And let's qualify that by saying you came in with a really high level of skill already.
Yes.
It's not like if you're a V8 climber, you're going to get to V13 easily just by having a hangboard and a bar. Can it be done? Sure. But
I would say
really
no,
hard.
I don't think it could be done.
It would be really hard for that to happen.
I think that that's maybe quickly rewind back to I guess telling people I've been climbing for 19 years.
Yeah.
And I've been climbing pretty much like I've never taken more than like a month off really since I started when I was 8.
Yep.
So
and you climbed really well on the youth circuit,
right.
Worlds, and
I went to Worlds all 6 years. I've climbed a lot in my lifetime, and there's no way that. I mean, I would attribute like maybe 15% of my like peak right now is to this training that I've been doing that I've been taking serious, and 85 of it is the endless like muscle memory moves that I've just done in my lifetime that my body knows how to move on the wall.
Yep.
That is an absolute prerequisite. So I guess, before I go too deep into, I guess, really what I did, know that I listened to your podcast before with Jorg.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And he said something that I completely agree with, in that if you want to get stronger and you're going to put together some training plan, the number one thing you got to do is increase the days you go rock climbing.
Yeah.
Like purely just the amount of rock climbing you do needs to increase. And that's like the number one most important thing.
Yep. Totally.
So I've already been doing that a lot. So for me, my next step was to add in the actual hardcore, like conditioning training.
Yep. Something a little more systematic.
Exactly.
And it doesn't have to be complicated, scientific, anything, as long as it's something a little more systematic to strengthen the things that you know you need to strengthen.
Yeah. And for me, it was real easy. It took me about 3 minutes to come up with my training goals for the next 3 months 3 months ago. I just said, okay, I can maybe do like a 1 arm or 2. By the time I'm done training, I want to be able to do 5. I can hold a front lever for like a second, maybe. When I get done training, I want to be able to do it for 30 seconds. I can hang on like a medium-sized crimp with one hand, like a 1-arm dead hang, for maybe 3 to 5 seconds if I'm lucky. I want to be able to do it 15 seconds. And I literally just did that. I just worked on those things. In maybe different ways, but I was always sort of measuring against those. Like how is my 1 arm increase?
So you weren't constantly like, I'm only going to train by doing 1 arms or train by doing front levers. You're doing other things and checking back in with the front lever regularly, or back in with the 1
but I'm not
regularly.
doing that many things. I mean, my training for 1-arm pull-ups is assisted 1-arm pull-ups, but I'm still, I'm not doing like 60 pull-ups with 2 hands to train 1 arms or anything like that's.
Yep.
So it was actually pretty focused on almost just doing
cool.
1 arms. And I mean, it's remarkable how simple it ended up being for me. I will say that I spent a lot of time on the moon board
Mhm.
throughout all this. And I think that has absolutely played a big role.
Yep.
Um,
Especially in that cave on that style.
yeah,
That's going to be a great tool
Yeah.
to use.
absolutely. I mean, the holds are kind of the same. They're all, you know, kind of like little mini pinches and
Yep.
crimps on a steep wall. And that's exactly what Esperanze is. But yeah, so I mean, I probably could have done this better, but just with the way that I am and with my life, I can't tell myself, okay, every Tuesday and Thursday at 6 o'clock, I'm going to go train. So it had more to do with whenever I had motivation or time or both, I would go to the gym.
Yep.
So maybe I felt like, you know, tomorrow morning, you know, I got a meeting, so I can't wake up early and go climbing. But the next day I don't have any calls all day. I'm going to go in the morning tomorrow morning.
Yep.
So it's kind of, I would just decide to go, but when I would go, it all came back to like those 4 things: moonboard, doing something one-arm pull-up related, something one-arm dead hang related, and something front lever related.
Now, how and why did you choose those 4 things?
Sure. So the one-arm dead hangs has always been my go-to finger strength exercise. That was the clear and obvious thing I needed. So that was a really easy way to kind of measure what progress I'm having. And I've always just, throughout my years of training, that ended up being how I found myself improving the fastest. So that was an easy one. Front levers, also an easy one. This is a roof.
Yep.
I knew that there's not a lot keeping you from swinging away from the wall when you do the bone move.
Yep.
There's no tricks you can really play there, so you just have to be slow and controlled.
Yep.
You
You've just got small feet.
Yeah.
Stretched out.
Yep. So I figured that those would help. I also knew that sometimes, like some seasons when I would come to Esperanze, I would be able to do the crossover move to the ear with my feet staying on, and some seasons they would come off, and I would have to hold this like heinous rip.
Yep.
So I knew that was also another move that the front levers were going to help, because that's exactly what that position is on that move.
Yep. And you wanted to keep your feet on.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. And then the one arms, I just wanted to be able to feel light and snappy on the wall. So I just added that to the mix. I always kind of used that as a stepping stone. So yeah, but I mean, literally that's all I did. I didn't really, I mean, I would maybe do negatives, or I would use like a band to assist take some weight off to do one arms, but I would do something that was definitely one arm related, and I would just do that.
Yeah. Quick question. And I'm asking this because the other day, Annalisa and you and I were walking up the chains, and Annalisa said, "You look like you weigh nothing while you're climbing." You know? And you just said, I'm doing these one arms because I want to feel light. Was there actual, I'm trying to drop weight, I'm doing any dieting, or was it that you just wanted to feel stronger so that you seemed lighter?
Yes. No, I'm glad you brought that up, because that actually was something that I incorporated. I am a avid believer of the keto diet.
Okay.
And I did that for a month before I came.
Okay.
My body takes to it really well. So it's sort of become my, about 2 years ago when I first did it, and I saw like the progress that I had. Back then it was in preparation for a comp, but it was clear that it helped. So I'll usually go keto for a month before something.
Okay.
To drop some weight.
So you don't keep the keto diet going all the time. You just drop into it a month or so before the goal.
Yeah, I wish. I love beer too much. I can only stay away for about a month.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, it's definitely a part of it. I mean, usually I will drop about 15 pounds in a month, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But it's mostly because I eat pretty poorly. And I drink a lot of beer. So I have the weight to lose.
Okay. So you're getting lighter and you're getting stronger.
Yep.
So you're just going to feel like you're floating up there.
Yeah.
That's
and
the goal.
it definitely worked. So I guess after all the moonboarding and the finger strength exercises and the front levers and the one arms, I pretty much met most of my goals that I set out. Shattered the one arm goal, met my one arm dead hang goal, and fell just shy of my front lever goal.
That's a big jump from a few seconds to 30.
Yeah.
That's a massive jump.
I didn't quite get to 30, but I was pretty psyched with 25 seconds.
Yeah, no doubt.
So
you might have to cut your legs off at the knees.
Yeah, that would help. So anyway, I worked pretty hard for the past 3 months, doing all that and feeling like the most substantial, clear, measurable progress that I'd ever felt ever. Mm-hmm. And came out here with pretty high confidence. And it was so clear that it had worked my first day.
Yeah, your Instagram post that day, you were like, I never dropped the bone move. This shit works.
Yeah.
This is amazing.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, within the first hour that I was on that boulder problem, I had already gotten a new high point. I had matched everything I had done in my golden year back when I was 19 at my pinnacle.
Yep.
I had shattered all of that progress. And it felt like a matter of, when, not if.
Yep.
So that day was good. I got, I stuck the ear from the bottom after a pretty long session, just sussing it out. And then it rained. So out here when it rains, I guess all of your listeners, beware. You do not climb in Waco tanks the day after it rains. I don't care if it was really windy the night before or if you're just going to go climb on roof. Stuff is breaking out here at a just shocking pace lately because people are climbing after it rains. So I took 2 rest days, came back, and felt incredible. Got to the last move and just pumped out while trying to go to the Waco. Had a couple of tries that I wasn't pumped, but something happened, like my foot slipped or I dry fired off a hold. But it was like, it felt so in the bag. Like, this is gonna go.
And pretty much the whole climbing universe seemed like they were behind you.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I really have that many followers on social media, but I do have one sponsor, but it's I'm a pretty low level athlete on the totem pole, and I don't really have tons of obligations to sponsors or anything because I work full time and I sponsor myself. So yeah, so it was mostly just for me, and I don't have a ton of followers. I haven't really made a ton of effort to expand my social media presence, but I definitely got an uptick as people started following my journey with this thing.
Yeah, people seem like they were really stoked about it.
Yeah, I mean, I just have a lot of friends who know that I've been trying this for so long.
Right.
But yeah, so I mean, I was really excited. I mean, I've not felt that elated just out of pure progress on how much better I felt. I mean, regardless of how the rest of the trip went, I knew that my pinnacle of 9 years ago, I've broken through that plateau finally. And it really didn't take much but dedicated effort for longer than, a month.
I think that's a really interesting thing to look at. Like a lot of us, say someone is stuck at 12C or V5, V6, whatever. It's really easy to look at the people who have climbed V13 or 14C or whatever and feel like they can't possibly know what it's like to be stuck at a grade,
Yeah.
But you're saying, here I was 9 years ago. I was the strongest I'd ever been. I've never been that strong again. That was the pinnacle of my whole career. But it was V13. and trying V14. So for a lot of people, that sounds insane. But then you have this revelation of, oh, I had just mentally kept myself there,
Yeah.
I had more in me.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's really interesting for people to hear.
Yeah. I mean, it's, you definitely have to be smart with how you apply your effort. But most people, I would say 95% of people, 99% of people that I see, effort is where they're falling short more than anything. That's the reason.
Yep. Yeah, I see that more and more, actually. It's not something I gave enough credit to for years, but I definitely see that more and more.
Yeah. And I mean, everyone's got they're in a different place in life, right? I mean, there's a lot of people who are, kids who are becoming pro athletes, or just people in college who have all the time in the world. And for them, they're putting a lot of effort in, but for them, the effort is not like, how hard am I going to try at the gym? Or I guess their effort is, how hard am I going to try at the gym? Most people's effort is, how am I going to organize my life and organize my time so that I can go to the gym in the first place?
Right. How much energy am I even going to have once I get to the gym to put toward it?
Yeah. And that is, I mean, having been one of those kids who took a semester off of college and had all the time in the world, effort when you go to the gym is usually not the problem. It's figuring out how to dedicate the time, once you don't have all the time in the world.
Right.
And that's been a big reason for me, which has been fine because I spent more of my effort on my career and on my marriage and everything. And
sure. And those things are massively important.
Yeah. But, I something about this year, and it just hit me. So I made sure that I carved out the time. I made sure that my wife was on board with me being away a little bit more than normal. I quite honestly slacked off at work more than I normally would. And that's okay. That's just a decision that I decided I was okay with. It's absolutely paying dividends. So I wouldn't change anything that I've done so far for the world.
That's a really interesting statement. I was going to ask you, do you think there's something you would have changed? Because here we are. We both wish this conversation was happening under different circumstances.
Yeah.
That you had sent, and we could talk about that success. But you're indicating that it's a success anyway. You've done the right things. So it's just a step in the process at this point.
Yeah.
It's not the finish of the process, which you thought it was going to be. It ended up just being another step.
Yeah. I mean, just like my motivation while I was training to keep going was these artificial goals that I had set for myself, and I met two, fell short of another. I'm realizing now that Esperanze is another artificial goal that's sort of a measure of progress, but and I have definitely gone back and forth and had lots of frustrated moments. I've kind of had a chance to pull my thoughts together, but no matter if I had done it or not done it, the progress is so clear.
Yeah.
I mean, it was the reason that I had the motivation to train so hard. I owe that boulder problem everything. And it gave me exactly what I needed, which was the psych and the motivation to put forth the effort, which I did. And regardless of if I sent it or not, I am in the best shape I've ever been in my whole life. And it was directly because of all the hard work. So I'm sure that I will come back and do that boulder problem. I'm not going to let it slip away. But I absolutely consider this a success.
Totally. I completely agree with that. And I'm glad to hear you say it, because like last night when you posted on Instagram the video of you hitting the jug, hitting the Waco, and then swinging out from it, I like typed up a response, and then I was like, should I even send this? And I put the face palm on there, and I was like, no, I shouldn't face palm. I don't know.
I promise I was doing it enough to myself already.
I was like, I don't know how he feels about this, so I don't know if I should respond. Because a lot of people would just walk away completely dejected. Like I've put this much of my time, this much of my life I've dedicated to this thing that now I haven't done, and see that as a total failure instead of seeing it as, oh, I made a lot of progress. I'm not quite there yet, and I can get there, and I will be there, but I didn't have to be there at this time when I expected to be.
Yeah. And I think, I went through several phases where I definitely felt that way.
Sure. I don't know how you couldn't.
But yesterday I sort of finally decided that I was going to be okay with whatever happened, which took a lot of pressure off and allowed me to sort of move forward a little bit. And I had a great day of efforts today that I think wouldn't have been as good had I had all the pressure. But yeah, it's definitely a bummer, but again, the more I think about it, the more I'm just so insanely proud of the work that I did.
Fuck yeah.
And the other thing too is it's not even really like I'm not there yet. I'm there.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I had several attempts that would have been the go.
Yep.
Had I not had something go wrong with the attempt. Anything could go wrong anywhere on that climb for me.
Sure. Yeah.
And I just got, unlucky. A few attempts. I maybe didn't quite manage my time appropriately to have all the energy I needed. There were a couple of days of trying it where I realized, oh crap! Like I didn't have enough in my tank at all to do it today.
Right.
And I just used it up anyway.
Yep.
So I obviously will probably train some power endurance because that's like the one thing I didn't really train,
mm-hmm.
and that's exactly why I'm falling off because I pump out at the end. But I am 100% sure that I am capable of the rock climb right now with the work that I did. So it's a bummer that it didn't go. But again, I'm really proud that I was able to get my ability and my strength to where it needed to be to put myself in a position to climb it.
Yeah, totally. It's been really fun to watch it. Are you somebody who's always kind of put your goals out there and kind of let everybody know that you're shooting for this thing?
Yeah. I have. I would say that I have not really had a goal that's this long term before. I've had like a couple of times where I decided I was going to compete at Bouldering Nationals or whatever.
Right.
And I would tell people that I was going to compete. And I would train for it, and I did, pretty well at the last one that I went to. But this is the first one that was this long term, and for me it felt this grand, and really that this is the one that has meant the most to me.
Yeah.
Because I've never had anything that really snapped me out of my life to put forth effort 3 months in advance. I'm very much a procrastinator, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like doing that, the fact that I started 3 months ago is an indicator of how much this will mean to me when I do it and how much it's meant to me so far.
Yeah. This is a strange question. I'm not even exactly sure how to word it, but something you just said kind of popped this into my brain. What do you think, or how much effort do you think you would have put in had it not been for the fact that the place where you hit a plateau was at a really high level. Do you think if you had hit a plateau earlier, like at V10, would you have put in more effort sooner? Or do you think it was just a matter of,
so
that's how life fell out?
Yeah, it's a little of everything. I mean, I will say that I did plateau at V10.
Okay.
I climbed V10 when I was 13, and I didn't climb harder than that until I was like maybe 16. So that was a 3-year plateau, and I was climbing hard the whole time, and I just couldn't break through it. But I was a kid, and comps were kind of more of the focus back then.
And I think that, hitting that V13 level and having done several of them when you're 19 years old, it's really easy to allow, and maybe this isn't the case with you, but at that point, it seems like it would be really easy to allow yourself to say, like you did, I've reached my pinnacle.
Yeah, well, that exactly.
Because it's such a high level.
I mean, it's really easy to be content.
Yeah.
When you can climb most any boulder problem at an area you go to.
Mm-hmm.
You can climb pretty much any boulder problem that they set in the gym within
Right.
a few tries.
Yep. Boy, I hadn't even thought about that.
You're stronger than pretty much anybody you climb with in your hometown. That's happened to me several times.
Yeah. Most gyms don't set much harder than V10.
Yeah. There's no reason to, really.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that's a really huge reason why it took me 9 years. I was satisfied with my climbing ability.
Sure.
I could climb stuff I was proud of, essentially off the couch, for a grand part of that 9 years. So I was satisfied. So where I focused my efforts was elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, that's why the effort was as great as it was this time around, is because I knew that if I'm ever going to get past this, it's going to have to be the result of a lot of effort.
Lots of hard work.
Yeah. And really, I mean, I almost feel like I haven't even really put in that much effort. I only trained, I mean, I basically was farting around, slacking off until 3 months ago. That wasn't
Right.
that long ago.
Right.
I'm not like a new person or anything. I still have more to do. I'll probably continue training. So, maybe there's more to be gained here, and there's more effort to put in. And I'm not even sure I really put in like everything I possibly could have. But it's certainly more than I ever have in the past by a pretty substantial amount. So, yeah.
Having seen these results after putting in that kind of effort, and you don't have to say names, but are there other goals? Have you thought beyond Esperanze, or is that still the thing that's consuming?
You know what I find myself thinking about the most is all I'm missing out on as I sit there under the Martini roof here in Waco. I mean, there are boulder problems that get done every, like 5-star lines every month from the locals around here.
Yep.
And
Seems
west
like
or
there's
east.
a little renaissance going on here.
Yeah. And I'm seeing all that stuff happen, and I'm just still, here I am for the 9th year spending my days under the Martini roof.
Right.
So I don't know if my aspirations are harder rock climbs.
Yep.
I'm kind of ready for it to be over with. But I'm sure that there will be something that will catch my eye. There's a route in Austin that I'm pretty excited to go try with all my new power that Cody Roth put up about a year or two ago. It's a variation to a route that the Austin legend Rapesh did called I, Me, Mine.
Yeah. I talked to Cody about this on the podcast.
Oh,
I think.
okay. I haven't listened to that podcast.
Right after
but-
he did it, I was headed to Austin. So
Okay,
I
cool.
hit him up and talked to him.
Yeah, so that I'm not sure if he had settled on what he thought the grade probably was. Not that it really matters, but It's probably 515, but very short and bouldery. So it's really more than anything. It's like probably a V12 into a V13, which is incredible that he did that. But I have done I've done all the moves on that route. And it's steep and crimpy, kind of like Esperanze is. So I would like to try that.
Yeah.
That's something that's in my head. But yeah, I think I'm just so emotionally drained from this that I just want it to be over.
Yeah, I can't blame you at all. I know how these long campaigns can go, and I think in a lot of ways it's easier to have a long campaign on a long sport route. It seems far easier to get really frustrated when it's just a few moves, and not that
possibly
Esperanze is a lot of moves for a boulder problem, and it'd be a lot of moves if you're climbing on the rodeo wave in Lander or something, but it's still a handful of moves. You can touch all the holds from the ground, so it seems to me, maybe because I'm more of a sport climber than a boulder, that it would be way easier to get really frustrated that way. So
yeah, I don't know. When I think about that question, I almost feel
easier
the opposite.
To bail on it even. I think that's
maybe that one.
That's the fault with a lot of people sticking to things they can do relatively quickly and not really digging into a hard boulder.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I almost feel more frustrated when I fall on a route because you're just, at least with most of the routes that I've spent a lot of time on, because I'm a route climber too. I just haven't done much lately. You climb for you spend 15 minutes on that wall. It's like a journey to get in. It's always up there at the top that you fall.
Yep.
So I feel like it's more frustrating to fall off a route because you worked so much harder to get where you got, and it took so much more time.
Yep.
But I think you're right. I think it's easier to just throw your hands up and say, you know what, I'm just going to try something else with the boulder problem.
Yeah.
Which I can't believe I honestly haven't done that already. I probably would have had a lot more fun over the past 9 years if I had.
You're learning good lessons, though. I think that's what's really important. And I think that's what's important in all of this, frankly, is the lessons we carry from one boulder to the next or one route to the next. And I think the lesson of I had 9 years of believing I had already been the strongest I was ever going to be. And now I'm realizing, holy shit, I've got more. I think that's a massively cool lesson.
Yeah. Yeah, and I always knew that I hadn't given it everything I had.
Yeah.
I always knew that.
I was thinking about this today, actually sitting in a hot tub at the YMCA in El Paso.
Nice.
How do you feel about the term dark horse? I can't decide if it's a compliment or not, or just a statement of fact, but I've heard you described as a dark horse.
Huh.
I've heard you...
I'm usually described nowadays as the old guy, which feels really weird, but the last few big competitions I've been in...
I'm not going to call you the old guy.
Yeah, I know. That's why there's plenty of... I don't feel that old at 27, but I still do comps, right? And sometimes I'll make it to finals in some big comp, and it'll be Brooke and Nathaniel and Drew, and they'll be the ones in ISO with me, and I'll be like, oh my god, I'm 6 years older than everybody in here. But dark horse. I don't know. Maybe it's because I never chased the pro climber dream, and I don't get to spend a lot of time on rock or doing comps, that my name's not out there that much, and that I guess is why people would call me a dark horse. I don't know.
Yeah, you definitely fly under the radar a little bit. And I think I ended up just settling, and actually this came in part from your Instagram account, and having watched the video not too long ago. But I ended up settling, instead of dark horse or under the radar, any of those other terms. I just decided on Texas legend.
Ha! Oh man, Dalen Faulkner is gonna be so happy to hear that.
So
yeah. I mean, there have been several people from Texas that I would consider greater legends than I.
There are quite a few Texas legends for sure, but I'd put you in that category.
Okay.
100%.
I guess technically, since I won the Texas Legends competition this year,
exactly,
I am
you're the
officially
reigning
the
Texas
reigning
legend.
Texas Legend. That competition,
it looks amazing.
It's such a silly little thing that I can't believe Dalen gets so many people to rally around it. But this year the trophy was literally a giant cast iron hammer.
Yeah.
In the shape of Texas.
Yeah, if you haven't seen the video, everyone should go find that video. I'll try and remember to link it here in the show notes. There's some Texas legend videos out there. So
yeah, it's just a comp that this kid has been throwing for a while. That it's always at his house, either in his attic wall, or this year he actually built a wall over his pool.
Over his pool.
Yeah. Which was really sick. But everybody that climbs in, mostly in Texas, has started to actually like drive to Dallas for this thing.
Yeah.
So that's been fun. But
that's awesome.
But yeah, man, you got me thinking about who from Texas.
Tell me some more Texas legends.
Yeah, man. Well, there's kind of at least the folks who really put hard climbing on the map in Texas. I would say that there are three really big names from the Austin area. So there's Rupesh Chagan. I'm not sure if I'm saying that last name right. There's Clayton Reagan, and there's Andrew Oliver. I would say that the three of them, between them three, pretty much every hard rock climb in Texas has been bolted and first ascended by one of them. Most of the hard boulder problems as well. And this was like maybe 20 years ago or something. Like they were climbing 514 when I was like, before I even started climbing.
Yeah.
There's also one of my old climbing coaches from forever ago, Josh Haynes. He is definitely an under the radar crusher. I'm not sure he's in peak strength anymore, but he's done Esperanze.
Okay.
He spent a season out here a long time ago, and he did that thing. Daniel Woods, he's originally from Dallas.
He's a Texas guy.
Yeah.
Puccio.
I'm not sure he would credit himself as being from Texas, since he lived most of his life in Colorado. But
yep. Texas definitely produces some crushers. Team Texas, especially, has produced a lot of crushers over the years.
Yeah, a lot of comp crushers.
And it's really cool for me. I used to MC comps, and for some reason, I don't know the politics of it, but Team Texas used to have to come to Cincinnati for divisionals, I think.
Yeah.
And
I remember those days.
And I MC'd a lot of those comps in Cincinnati. And so I remember, watching Future and watching the Puccios all come up. And, a lot of these comp kids and a lot of the comp kids in Cincinnati and everywhere else, a lot of them have kind of dropped out of climbing or off the radar entirely. And we just don't know that they're still climbing. So it's cool to see somebody who came up in that comp circuit really dedicating themselves to, I want to do this thing outside, rather than I'm going to come up through the comp circuit, get this strong as a comp kid, and then let it fizzle out after that.
Yeah, that's I've seen that happen over and over again. I used to coach for Team Texas, so I've seen a lot of kids that had a lot of potential that go to college and just sort of fizzle out. It happens a lot. I think with a lot of them, it's mostly because, they've grown up with climbing their whole life, and it's sort of just like always been the way they've lived their life. Practice is on Tuesday and Thursday.
Sure.
At this time. And they just go, and that's their routine. And every bit of free time they spend climbing.
Yeah.
And the second they go to college and they have to live their own life and make their own decisions, and there's no like world-class team with coaches telling them exactly how to train, they get overwhelmed with everything that they have to do. And
sure.
And then
it's totally fine to find other things you're
absolutely
stoked on and want to move on to. And
totally. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, a lot of people will become more frustrated because they can't be at that same top shape with all this other stuff going on, which comes back to my point of that's really like the hardest part, I think, is organizing your life to have the time in the first place. But I think for the difference with me, I think is I really prioritized climbing outside when I was younger. I wasn't always on Team Texas. I spent a good amount of time on Team Texas, and I kind of bounced around teams in Dallas. My dad took me climbing a good bit. And I carved out time to go on trips myself with buddies of mine. And climbing outside was a big part of why I loved climbing. And a lot of people now, it's sort of like their little escape from training for comps.
Yeah. Did you have like mentors bringing you up or influencing you in the gym back then? Because Dallas is not an epicenter for outdoor climbing.
Yeah.
No. Did you have people who were like, "Oh, you should go outside. That's where the cool stuff is," or
That's a good question. I'm not sure that was ever like the clear message from them.
Okay.
But yes, I had several mentors, several climbing coaches. Team Texas does a good job of making sure that kids have fun climbing outside. They've always taken like
they used to always stop in the red when
they
were during divisionals, and I remember.
Summer trip every year we would spend a month out there.
Yep. And Jessa Goebel is a friend of mine. And
Jessa. She's one of the original trips. Team Texas members. So I had that happening. I had climbing coaches that would train us for comps, but they would also find time to take us on a week trip outside. I was fortunate enough to have parents that could send me on a trip. And I had some really good buddies that were like my friends that I would go climbing with. In particular, you mentioned Future earlier. He was a big influence on me early on. We took some trips together, and then really the guy that I got the strongest climbing with was Ryan Sewell.
Okay. Yep.
So Ryan Sewell used to live in Dallas, and we climbed together at some really horrible tiny gym. And that is like probably the most fun I ever had and the strongest I ever got. And we would go on trips together. He was fortunate enough to have parents that could send him on trips too.
Yep.
But yeah, it was just always part of it. It was never like the short escape from the grueling training plan or anything. And there wasn't as many comps back then either. Comp scene has really exploded. I'm not sure if I would have gotten swept up in it.
Yeah, how do you feel about, being one of those kids who was prioritizing outdoor climbing? How do you feel about this current sort of delineation between the two? It seems like it's getting more and more toward, if you're going to be a comp climber, you should be focusing on comps versus outdoor climbing. Especially, I'm just thinking of today's Alex Puccio announcement that she's not going to try for the Olympics. She's going to focus on outdoor climbing.
Oh, cool. That's first I'm hearing of it.
Yeah, you were up at the Boulder all day. So Yeah, she just announced today that she's not going to try for the Olympics. She'd rather focus on climbing outside. So
yeah, that doesn't surprise me. She's an incredible boulderer, obviously. One of the best the world has ever seen. And I think that she could be a good rope climber. I'm sure she would if she put the effort in. But I don't know if she would really enjoy speed climbing enough to put that much effort into it.
Doesn't seem like she's that stoked on it. So.
I know her pretty well. We grew up on the same climbing team together. We're pretty close, so I can say this. I know that she would not have fun.
Yeah,
speed climbing. So that doesn't surprise me. Man, I mean, you're right. There's a huge rift these days between the people who can climb well outside and the people who compete in comps.
There's a lot of crossover too.
Right.
But it just seems like it's headed that direction, I think.
Yeah. There's not many who can do it. I mean, I can only think of like Sean Bailey and Alex, really. I'm trying to think. I'm sure there's so many names I'm missing, but there's not a lot of names that really can be at an absolute highest level at both.
Yep.
And even they have to train separately for it. But yeah, I mean, there's the style of setting. Everything is changing. You don't need me to tell you that. But I don't know. I'm okay with it. I think a lot of people are frustrated that comp style boulder problems are like so different than what climbing outside is now.
Right.
But if climbing is going to go big time, which I think it should, and I would love to see more money in the sport, that's the way it's got to be.
Sure.
So I'm okay with it.
Yeah,
I'm just picking my poison. But you got to train different. You have to really be something special. I mean, genetically, to be able to do both. I think if more people put the same amount of effort into climbing outside that people put into comp climbing, we would have a lot more, like
really
515Bs and V15s in the world. I mean, there are people. I mean, let's take Sean Bailey for instance. That guy trains like harder than I've ever seen anybody train, and he's also incredibly gifted genetically. And he poured everything he had into rope season last year.
Yep.
And I don't off the top of my head know what his results were, but I know that he was not satisfied, and I'm not even sure he made finals at a World Cup more than. I'm not even sure he made it once. Maybe definitely not more than a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the output of all his training, was a season where he didn't accomplish really what he wanted to do.
Right.
If you can imagine if that equal amount of effort went into only focusing on outdoor climbing, it's not that many people who do that. And I mean, frankly, there's not as many people watching or caring. There's not as much money to be made by everybody for when somebody climbs something really hard.
Yep. Totally.
Unless you have like a video crew and you make a movie out of it, but that's pretty few and far between.
Yep.
So that's just the way it is. That if you want to be a pro climber, you got to be a comp climber.
Yep.
Unless you're Adam Ondra and Dave Graham.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's cool. I like watching it. It's fun to watch, and I don't need it to look like outdoor climbing personally. You know, I think it's fun, and I think they're just different pursuits at this point. It's really cool, and I can see someone do both really well. But I also like watching Miho Nanaka, and you know, I enjoy watching comp climbers who are just really good at comp climbing. I don't care what they climb outside; it doesn't matter to me. You know? So I was just curious what your take on it was, since you came up in that scene when it was a different thing, and you know, focused on the outside now. So.
Yeah, no, I think it's headed in the right direction. I mean,
even though you're a Texas legend,
right?
Reigning Texas legend.
I think it's headed in the right direction. There's obviously going to be things that are different, and people are going to be frustrated that it's different along the way. But the day that Alex Pucci doesn't have to pay her own way to go compete at all the World Cups, that's going to be a good day. When you know our best actually can make enough money to support themselves.
Totally.
That's why I have a full-time job.
Yeah. Well, man, I appreciate you taking the time to sit down, especially under the circumstances, and being willing to say, yeah, I'm gonna sit down and talk to you no matter what happens, because it'd be really easy to just say I don't want to talk about it, you know. But I think you're learning the best lessons from it, and I have zero doubt that you'll be back and you'll tick this thing off and then go climb on all the new things you want to.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you being interested in my perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all struggle through it, just maybe not as high a level as you are. So I think it's great for everybody to hear that somebody climbing V13 can break through a 9-year plateau that they sort of self-imposed, and that doesn't mean you succeeded on a boulder yet.
Yeah, that's I'm trying really hard to not let that be the measure of my entire self-worth as a climber.
Yep. I think that's fucking cool, personally.
Took a long time. I've been climbing a long time, and I used to definitely think that way. I'm absolutely honored to be on your podcast, and I hope people care about my perspective at all.
They will for sure.
Wouldn't have expected it, but it's an honor.
Cool. Thanks, Brian.
Yep.
First off, BA, thanks again, man, for sitting down and being so open to discussing this before it's reached its conclusion. It's tough for a lot of people, and I think it's really an important part of the story, you know, of the story that we all need to go through, whether it's V4 or V14. It doesn't really matter. If we're honestly giving 100% effort to something that is going to require 100% of our effort, we're all going to follow this path. And this was important for me to hear. And, you know, I plan to try and be there when Brian comes back in a few weeks for round Who's Counting and for the takedown with the new beta that he deemed not for him long ago. A classic mistake that all of us make at some point. I've made it a number of times, and I'm sure all of you have as well. And as always, there are links in your show notes to find Brian on the Instagrams so that you can be there too. Maybe more important, you can see the support that happens from other climbers, or dark horses, Texas legends. And if you stick around to the very end of this thing, after the theme song, I just recorded a short 5-minute chat with Dalen Faulkner about the Texas Legends comp that Brian and I talk about in the interview, and about what Brian's influence means to Dalen's generation of Texas climbers. And of course, you all know where to find us, powercompanyclimbing.com, at Power Company Climbing on the social medias, Facebooks, the Instagrams, the Pinterests. And you know what? We're on Twitter now. Just kidding. That's never going to happen, because we don't tweet, we scream like eagles.
This time to build power. 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 This time to build. 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 This time to build.
Lander, I'm gonna try to get you on to talk about the Todd Tour anyway.
Oh, that'd be sweet.
Because I think it would be an awesome conversation just about history, and we can both geek out about shit.
I never get to talk about stuff like this.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to listen to me for that long.
People will. It'll be awesome. But so you run the Texas Legends comp.
Correct.
And you told me a great story the other day about Brian winning it this past year.
Yeah.
So give me a little about the Texas Legends comp first. How did that come about? Just the history of it.
Like basically 5 years ago, I just wanted to I have a pretty great woody above my parents' garage.
Yep.
And I've kind of poured it's the never ending project, just make it better, you know.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah, kind of
We all obsess.
Yeah, scheme over holds and just like, yeah, try and always improve it. And then I started putting on this like little event for like all these kind of crushers in the Dallas scene, because there was like kind of this golden era where there was like 10 to 15 of us that were all super motivated and kind of similar abilities, and Brian was kind of leading the whole charge of that.
Right.
We all kind of like looked up to him to be like, what do we do next? And he's like, go to this.
Yeah.
Like, thanks, Brian. Because
Yeah.
he's already done it. Like,
Yep.
he did everything. So yeah, the first year I hosted it, Brian won, like clean slate, beat everybody, like our strongest guys in Dallas by, you know, quite a bit.
Yep. And at that time, it was in the woody above your garage.
And
like
it
in the
stayed like
attic.
that for the next 3 years, which my buddy Tanner, who you should definitely look into interviewing next.
Okay.
Tanner is a whole case.
Do the dark horse circuit.
Yeah, so Tanner won the next 3 years. He's like a V13 climber that nobody's ever heard of.
Yep.
He's like now the grip champion of like the world.
Oh, sick.
And so it's like Brian just like couldn't compete with this guy that could hang on to anything. And
Right.
my woody is primarily 45.
Yep.
So it's like kind of steep and thuggy. Like no matter how I set it, it just kind of always ends up being that way. And it really catered to Tanner. And, you know, BA wanted to win. He was trying hard to win. And
Right.
he just, like never could. And then this year I built this like 15-degree wall over my parents' swimming pool.
Because your dad was worried that the garage wouldn't support it anymore.
Yeah, we had so many people sardined into our attic that my dad was like, I don't think my roof is supposed to hold that, you know? Like, we're going to like have like the most catastrophic climbing incident like,
Yeah,
ever, and it's
yeah.
all going to be my fault. So I was like, all
You
right.
kill all the Dallas Crushers in one foul swoop.
Yeah, so I thought the safer way to do it now would be to build a wall over a pool. So, yeah, which I don't think I can do that again. I'm just pushing too many buttons with my parents. They never approved it, but they never said no to the idea. And then one morning they woke up and it
There's
was
just
already,
a wall.
It was already like 50% built. We had just raged it all night because it was like the summer and it was hot. And so,
That's hilarious.
so we got it done, and then they were like upset because it kind of turned out so well. Like it looked so well that
Right.
they couldn't really be that mad.
Right.
Yeah. And so that style, the format this year was for a Seco block, but I didn't want to race like the Utah Seco block
Right.
because, you know, not to hate on that event, it's like a stellar event, but it can kind of get a little redundant just seeing people run
Yep.
the same laps, and the guys were just like 13 to minus and like they got it dialed and it's easy.
Right.
So I was like, how do I make my Seco block kind of different? And I decided on this format I dubbed the soft second go format. So
Okay.
it was a flashing event, but throughout all the rounds, all 5 rounds, you get 1 mulligan for a soft second go.
Oh.
And so you have to be a little strategic, like how you use it, because like you could use it early in the rounds, but then you only get flash attempts for the rest of the comp.
Right.
Yeah. So if you fall in, get your shoes wet, you know.
Oh,
I told everybody to
sick.
bring multiple pairs of shoes, and yeah, we had 2 qualifiers, and then Brian was like, okay, Dalen, like I promised my grandparents I need to go have dinner with them because Brian's like a really good grandson and never gets to see his grandparents.
Right.
And so he was like, I have to pull out of the event. And so I was like, dang, that's a total bummer. And he left. But then there was like this crazy storm that came in with like 70-mile-per-hour like gusts, and like everything got flipped over.
That
like,
didn't blow your wall down.
no, the wall stayed true. That was like the true final test. We were all horrified, like, oh my God. And like we were trying to reset the wall when this storm came through. And there's some pretty hilarious photos of us like standing on top of ladders, and there's like lightning in the background.
God.
It like looks absurd. It was like super dangerous. And so we like kind of got out of there. But like so much trash like flew into the pool, grills like flipped over. We had this like 60-foot slip and slide, and it like just flew all the way like into this field. People had to go like retrieve it. Yeah, so that was pretty great. And then so that delayed us for about an hour.
Do you think BA had anything to do with the storm?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
He was doing some voodoo magic,
Yeah, I think so.
because it was right as he left, like kind of shit hit the fan.
Yeah.
And so we were like, wow, that was crazy.
Yeah, there's some secret powers there we don't know about.
And he was able to go have dinner with his grandparents, and then right as he came back, the show kind of went on.
Yep.
And he just like bam, bam, bam,
Crushed everything.
Yeah, we had a round of top 16, and then it went to top 8, and then top 4 for like the finals route. and BA led the pack through each group.
Nice.
It was impressive. And that morning, I didn't even know he was competing until that morning when he said, "Dalen, I just saw the trophy you made. I'm flying from Mexico City right now."
The Texas-shaped hammer.
Did you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So my one of my best friends in Dallas is a blacksmith, and I told him about this. I was like, "I need a trophy," and he was like, "I'm on it." And he found this like super like amazing metal that weighs like 25 pounds, and it's like the shape of Texas by about 6 inches. And
Yeah.
yeah. But oh man,
It's in the video, right?
yeah, he
Yeah.
like holds it up and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, that's
and
what I thought. I thought that's where I'd seen it.
beast of a sledgehammer.
Yeah. And we'll link to the video in the show notes so everybody listening
Yeah.
can watch the video.
Yeah,
It's amazing.
my buddy Brendan, he's another Texas guy. He made a pretty great little edit
Yeah.
of just like 2.5 minutes of kind of just like stuff being thrown at you.
Awesome. So you said that BA kind of was this like, I don't know if mentor is the right word, but this figure you were all looking up to like, what do we do next? This guy's done all the things.
Yeah, pretty much. Like,
Because when I told BA, I'm not going to give you the dark horse term, I'm just going to call you a Texas legend.
He
He was
wasn't a
kind of
dark
like,
horse to
well,
us.
there are these legends in Texas that are far beyond me, and he's naming all these people, and I'm like, well, I think that's part of the mark of a legend is that you
yeah.
respect all those who came before you, and then you
Mm-hmm.
pass it on.
Oh, dude, he held the torch for a long time.
Yeah.
He still does.
Yeah.
I mean, none of us can go and do Esperanze, that's for sure.
Right.
Like,
He's still battling. So.
he's still battling, but like, it's not like he won't do it.
right.
It just-
And that's the cool thing, like seeing those legends
Oh,
go
yeah.
to battle.
And he's still after it, man. Like,
Yep.
he'll just show up and outclimb all of us. And it's like,
Right.
what the heck? Like, we've been training relentlessly for 10 years. Like,
Yeah.
why can we not still beat Brian? And it bugs some of the kids. It's great. But, I mean, it's all pretty motivating.
Yeah.
Yeah. For sport climbing and stuff, like, he was like the young guy out there kind of sitting on these like wild sport climbs and
Right.
going to youth worlds like pretty consistently.
Yep.
He was like the North Face young gun, like at my first national.
Yeah, that's right.
My
yeah.
first national ever. I was just like, dang, like Brian's like really good at this. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's cool, man. That's cool. I love seeing guys like Brian who kind of, again, the word mentor just pops up, but become this figure
mentor is
in
a great word.
yeah,
yeah,
become a mentor to this specific subset of the culture, you know,
Mhm.
like all these Texas kids looking up to people like that.
yeah.
And Texas turns out some fucking crushers,
Oh,
man.
yeah.
So
Time and time again.
there's something going on there.
I don't know.
Maybe it's his voodoo magic, but you know,
yeah,
whatever
just
it is,
good,
it's working.
good mentors and like accessible like training facilities, I guess. And
Yep.
because like, you know, living in Dallas, like we had to drive 7 hours to Arkansas or 9 hours to Waco, and so it just like wasn't super accessible as like
Right.
kids.
Right.
And so typically it would be like, all right, the way we're gonna do it is we're gonna train our faces off, and then when you go out, just try as hard as you can.
Yep.
And like a lot of people nowadays I see just have this projecting mentality where they just want to whittle something down until it like comes easy to them,
Yep.
and they don't know how to try hard anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so Brian was like, no, you can do anything if you just try really hard. And we were like,
That's funny. The quote I chose for the beginning of this episode, which you haven't heard yet, is Brian talking about how most people just aren't giving enough effort.
ha, that's hilarious.
So-
So, good
so it's
mentor.
cool that you
that's exactly
pulled that
like
lesson
what's
from it.
ingrained into me.
Yeah,
yeah.
totally. Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you taking some time, sitting down for a second.
Yeah, this was great.
I'm going to let you get back to the Todd Skinner tour. You're headed out to Walking Spanish today.
Yeah, we are.
Awesome.
That
Paul Piano
that
route.
is one of the most beautiful lines
Yeah.
I've ever seen.
Looks amazing.
Yeah.
When you come to Lander, let's definitely sit down, talk about the Todd Skinner tour.
That'd be awesome.
cool. Thanks,
Psyched.
Dalen.